How's it going, folks and fellas? Today I'm going to be going over my suggestions for changes to Town of Us, the Among Us mod. I made a similar video a couple years ago, and I figured now that I've been playing it again, might as well make a new version, updated version for what I think would be a superior version of Town of Us. Though, to be fair, I have a lot of conflicting ideas going back and forth, but we'll explain all that in a bit. So, to begin, let me clarify immediately that Town of Us is a very fun mod. But if you play the mod, then you understand that it has some balancing issues, and issues with the fundamental way both the roles work and the way that people tend to play, especially with better crew link. I don't know, people with better, whenever you play with better crew link, it's really just a completely different experience. So, my recommended changes, these changes, are meant to aid in the current design of the game, improving upon it, as well as adjusting elements of the sandbox to make it more fair. One of the fundamental strategies, or sorry, one of the fundamental problems with Ton of Us in comparison to vanilla is that the most viable strategy as a crewmate, more often than not, is to just not even worry about your task and to instead walk around and look for opportunities to use your ability. There's really no reason, like if you try and think about it, if you play Town of Us, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's really no reason to do your tasks. You know what I mean? Like you never see a task win. And tasks are such a vital and important part of vanilla, and I feel like the lack of people using their tasks has translated into more stagnant gameplay in Town of Us. So, there are two ways I plan to address that, both in change number 4 and change number 19. So hopefully it'll be more fair and more in line with the original ideal experience of Among Us, where it's more about deception and doing your task and trying to survive, which is far less of the case in Town of Us. Where in Town of Us, you just want to use your abilities, right? So let's start off. Oh yeah, Town of Us changes that would be fire. So let's start off with number one. Number one, I'm just gonna remove Spy as a crewmate role. Let's be real, Spy is the lamest crewmate role. Um, Out of all the ones that actually are used, obviously Oriole is kind of a big problem, but I've only ever been it once, and it's awful. I'll be honest, none of my changes address Oriole, but to be fair, that's because I haven't played Oriole enough to really give a fair opinion on what they should even do with Oriole. But Oriole is kind of like a not so good role, so I'm not even going to worry about the Oriole role. I'm just going to kind of leave it untouched. But outside of Oriole, Spy is arguably the worst role in the entirety of Town of Us. So, how am I going to address the Spy? Well, we're just going to remove it as a role entirely. The Spy is no longer a role that you can play as. That doesn't mean that the Spy is removed from the game. That's because, change number 2, we added a new modifier called Spy. Now, this is very similar to the Spy role, but the modifier is actually buffed. So, on top of being able to see extra information on admin table, you can also use abilities or utilities. So, like the admin table, the door logs, the cameras, all that stuff, right? Even when comms are sabotaged. So, this actually makes the Spy modifier quite versatile. Of course, the Spy modifier can be guessed, which means that, if people see that you're sitting on cameras, well, let me rephrase that. They can be guessed as long as the ability to guess modifiers is enabled by the host. Let me clarify that. But, sorry, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. That means that if somebody sees you sitting on cameras, even though comms are sabotaged, they're going to be pretty sus of you and they might guess you as the spy or guess you as having the spy modifier. So you got to watch out for that. So next up we have another change. So hopefully change number 1 and number 2 actually make the spy more enjoyable. So not only do you have the bonus ability of the spy, you also have whatever your actual role is. So if you're the sheriff plus spy or if you're whatever plus spy. Honestly, you still might end up not really using the spy ability because it kind of gives away your role more so than some of the other ones, but it's there. Next up, we have change number 3. We're going to remove Snitch as a crewmate role. This is a pretty drastic one, but I have a reason for why I want to remove Snitch as a crewmate role, because Snitch is a bit weird right now. Basically the Snitch results in one of two things. Either A, you're the snitch, and as soon as you get to your second to last task, you immediately get killed, which is pretty aggravating. Or B, you are able to get away as the snitch, and you're able to reveal the imposters and potentially the neutral roles to everybody. But that's a pretty unsatisfying way of figuring out everybody, and it's kind of BS for the neutral evils, which don't have access to the sabotages. So, like, as an imposter, obviously, you can press the sabotage button and you can kill whoever, or you can stop the snitch from pressing the emergency button. But as a neutral, you can't do that. So that is part of the reason why I want to address snitch. And part one of addressing snitch is by removing it as a role. If you can guess what change number 4 is, congratulations, you have great hindsight. We're adding a new modifier called snitch. Yes, so instead of the snitch being a role, it is now a modifier. And the snitch functions the same way as the role did. But the catch, this is the big important catch, is that the snitch doesn't know that they're the snitch at the beginning. So the catch is that any given crewmate with the snitch modifier will not know that they are the snitch until they have completed most of their tasks and are revealed, or if they have another modifier. So for example, if you have the spy modifier, or if you have sleuth, or if you have flash or whatever, you can't have the snitch modifier. So you can't have a flash snitch. Which honestly, let's be real, it's kind of an OP combo. It's kind of ridiculous that that even exists. So because of that, you can't be a snitch and a spy, or a snitch and a sleuth. You can only be a snitch and you can only be a snitch if you have no modifier. But again, you won't know if you're the snitch until you've completed most of your tasks or until you die. Once you die, you will obviously know that you are the snitch, or that you were the snitch. So, change number 5, removing investigator as crewmate role. You might see a trend here. So, although we removed the investigator as a crewmate role, we added a new modifier called investigator. So, it is usable on all crewmate roles, and the investigator works the same way as the role did, but all of the footsteps are gray. In order to see the color of the footsteps, the player will have to use the investigate ability, but the ability is on a cooldown. So basically, when you're walking around default and you have this investigator modifier, everybody's footsteps is going to be gray. You're not going to really have any true information. But if you see somebody hop into a vent, or if you see somebody kill and just barely get away, and you want to make sure you figure out what color the footsteps are, you can use your investigate ability and see the color of the footsteps, and that will basically be you using your ability. But most of the time, your footsteps are gray. So, next up, we changed giant. So we are changing a modifier. So, rather than the giant being the way it is right now, where a random player is just big and slow, which is just, it's funny, but it's kind of like dumb and stupid. So right now, that's the way it works. But in my change, the player will have, if they have the giant modifier, they will have the ability to toggle on and off being giant and being normal size. Being giant comes with the downside of being slower and larger, but with the benefit of being immune to other players' abilities. So basically, you can choose which one you want to do. Do you want to be like normal speed, aka faster and smaller, but be immune or be vulnerable to all of the elements just like you were previously, or do you want to be large and in charge, but you're immune to all players' abilities? You still can be killed. You can still be killed by killing rolls, but you cannot be killed by conditional kill buttons. So the vampire bite and the sheriff shot, they don't work on you whenever you are giant. As in, whenever you have the giant modifier and you toggle on the giant. So now there's a trade-off. It's not just a silly gimmick, there's actually a gameplay reason as to why you would want to be giant. Next up, we changed Survivor. A very simple change. We added the hack ability, same as the glitch. So on top of being able to use, what is it called? What is it called? Safeguard. On top of the ability to use Safeguard to protect yourself whenever you wish, you also get the hack ability from the glitch. It's the exact same ability and it does the exact same thing. So as a survivor, you know there. So the reason of this change is twofold. Reason number one is that whenever you hack somebody, you are able to protect yourself and change. Reason number two is that when you're the glitch, you can fake being the survivor, because now the survivor has the hack ability. So you can pretend to be the survivor whenever you're the glitch. Because previously, if you ever got hacked, you would immediately know exactly what role that person is. But now there's a gamble. Are they the survivor or are they the glitch? All right, change number 9, Executioner. This is a pretty big change, but I feel like it's important because the Executioner is kind of in a weird middle ground area right now. So, rather than the win condition being simply getting your target thrown out, this will simply add a detonation charge to everyone who voted for the person that got thrown out. So let's say, for example, 5 people vote out your target, the target successfully gets ejected, all 5 people will get a detonation charge on them. After your target has been successfully thrown out, the executioner will no longer be the executioner and they will become the detonator. The detonator is a neutral killing role with a kill button, just like you would expect, and a detonate button. Pressing the detonate button will simultaneously kill all players with a detonation charge. However, if the target is killed or disconnected before the executioner is able to get that player thrown out, then they will change into a different role depending on the settings, just like before. So basically, what's happening here is the executioner is changing from a neutral evil into a neutral killing, and once their target is dead, they basically have like a manifest of a bunch of different people theoretically that they will be able to kill with the press of a button, and just like any execution or just like any neutral killing, their goal is to be the last one standing. So you don't have to really worry about the executioner ending the game immediately, but if the executioner did successfully trick people into getting their target thrown out, there's going to be a lot of people that have a target on their back and they can immediately get killed by the press of a button. Next up, we have the change to the Jester. Kind of a similar-ish vibe, but if the setting for neutral, and this is a conditional thing, right? So Jester, if the setting is such that neutral evil win conditions end the game, Jester is unchanged. However, if the setting for neutral evil win condition doesn't end game, or win conditions don't end game, is turned on, then the Jester will kill all players who voted for the Jester whenever they fulfill their win condition. So there is now a true, real strategical reason to not throw out the Jester, and to make sure you don't throw out the Jester, even if neutral evil win conditions isn't turned on. Because previously, there was really no reason to worry about accidentally throwing out the Jester, because that doesn't ruin your gameplay. So there was really, again, like I just said, there was no reason to worry about throwing out the Jester. You could just throw out everybody, and there wasn't really a concern. But with this setting, although it won't end the game, it will ruin your game if you throw out the Jester and they, successfully get thrown out, because you will die. Of course, you can still win as long as you're either an imposter or a crewmate, or if you're neutral evil, if you're a neutral role where your win condition could be satisfied without having to stay alive, but you will be dead, so there is still incentive to not throw out the Jester. And obviously, the incentive to not throw out the Executioner is because you get a detonator on your back, and the Executioner can blow you up anytime. So, next up, whoops, went a bit further than I would like. We changed the Transporter. So, the Transporter is basically getting a huge buff because, let's be real, the Transporter is kind of lame by default. So, on top of the Transporter having a transport button, the Transporter will also have an emergency transport button. This will immediately teleport the Transporter with a random player in the game. However, the emergency transport button takes up up to two uses. It's supposed to just say two. Takes up 2 uses rather than 1. So, for example, if somebody's about to kill you and you're worried about dying, you can press the emergency transport button and take the gamble that you're transporting with somebody who isn't the person that's about to kill you, and you will be transported away. Of course, there is a 1 out of whatever chance that if there's somebody that's about to kill you or somebody that jumps at a vet and you're worried about them killing you, there is that worry that you'll just transport with them and you'll be the same distance away. But, um, you know, odds are you're going to transport somewhere completely different and you're going to save your own life. So that is the point of the emergency transport button. However, just like I mentioned, it takes up 2 uses. So there's a reason for you to not use the emergency transport button every single opportunity. But just because it's a transport doesn't mean emergency transport doesn't mean it's not a transport. Anybody who's getting transported, both the transporter and the person getting transported, will get the blue flash just like it was a regular transport, not just the emergency transport. Just to clarify. I feel like I'm losing my voice. So, now we have a change to the Doomsayer. Well, a potential change. So, this is a new setting. Of course, you can play with the Doomsayer the way it is right now, no problem, but there's now a new setting called Guess Removes Roll. If the Guess Removes Roll setting is on, rather than the Doomsayer killing a player upon guessing them, then instead, nothing happens, and at the start of the next round, it will convert crewmate rolls into vanilla crewmates, imposter rolls into vanilla imposters, and neutral rolls into amnesiacs. So, at the start of the next turn, if you were a certain role and now you're either a vanilla crewmate, a vanilla imposter, or a amnesiac, then you previously weren't any of those, then now you know, oh crap, I just got guessed by the Doomsayer. So now you can think about, okay, who did I tell my role or who did I observe or whatever? And there's a little bit more nuance in that regard. Or who did I tell my role or who did I let observe me or who do I think maybe could have observed me? Um, so yeah, that'll make it a little bit less frustrating because getting killed by the Doomsayer just because they take a random shot at you is kind of annoying. Um, so instead, it's changed so that instead of killing, they simply just remove your role. You still stay alive, but your role has been removed. So you become a vanilla, whatever, except for Amnesiac, I guess. Amnesiac isn't vanilla, but you get the idea. New crewmate killing role added, the Deathlinker. So this is a crewmate killing role. The Deathlinker will get a new ability called Deathlink and can only be used on one player at a time. So you can't use it on multiple players at the same time. This should not have a period here. Boop. If the player that is Deathlinked kills the Deathlinker, then the killer also dies as well. So, for example, if you're the Deathlinker and you're in a room with somebody, or you're about to do something with somebody like fix sabotages or whatever, and you're worried about that person killing you, well, go ahead and Deathlink with them or Deathlink them. That way, if they do kill you, they're going to regret it immediately because they will also die. So, not only will, of course, you will die, so that is a downside, but at the very least, you're also taking out your killer with you. And this only applies if they kill you. This doesn't apply, this isn't like a veteran thing where if they just interact with you, they die. It's only if they kill you, they also die. Next up, we have new neutral benign role, another new role. This is a neutral benign role, and it's called the Speedrunner. The Speedrunner cannot be killed. This is basically the first ability that cannot be killed. I guess there was the Child from like way back when, but this isn't really like that. So, the Speedrunner cannot be killed by most normal means and cannot be guessed out, but has to complete all their tasks before a certain amount of other players die, otherwise they will also die. So basically, it's a run against the clock to make sure that you do all of your tasks before too many people die. If the speedrunner is successful and they are able to finish all of their tasks before they die, then they will get to choose any non-imposter role that isn't taken. So if you finish your test, you can become whatever isn't taken. You can become a werewolf, you can become the glitch, you can become the 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 transporter, or transporter is a modifier now. The oracle, you can choose whatever you want, but if you cannot choose the juggernaut if the glitch is in play, and vice versa, and the same goes with the sheriff and deceiver. So you know how the Juggernaut and the Glitch can't be in the same game at the same time because, the Glitch is basically has a percentage chance of becoming the Juggernaut, and same with the Sheriff and the Deceiver. That is the same thing. So if there's a Juggernaut, you cannot become a Glitch. If there's a Glitch, you cannot become the Juggernaut. And if there's a Sheriff, you cannot become the Deceiver. And if there's a Deceiver, you cannot become the Sheriff. Okay? Just want to make sure that's clear. And if you don't know what the Deceiver is, don't worry, we'll get into that in a bit. Next up, we have another new imposter support role added, the Dropper. Once per round, the Dropper can leave a fake dead body of a player that was alive at the start of the round. If any player attempts to report the fake dead body, the body will disappear and the player will be hacked. Same ability as the glitch, except it's an even stronger hack because those abilities will be disabled for the rest of the round. So, very, very, very powerful. The Dropper basically forces the hand of certain roles where maybe you don't want to report the body. Of course, in most situations, you will want to report the body, but if you report a fake dead body, it could be devastating for you because you will be hacked and will not be able to use your abilities for the rest of the round. Um, I'm thinking maybe I might change it so that it's like a light hack, so that way, although yes, you can't use your abilities for the rest of the round, um, you can still report bodies. I think as the if you're hacked by the glitch, I think you can't hit the button to report bodies. So maybe I'll make like a different version of a hack for the dropper where it's not as strong, because this is a really strong ability. But of course, it's only used once. It can only be used once per round. And if you try to report a hacked body, then or a fake dead body, then yeah. So now we have another new, a new neutral killing role added, which is called the Switcher. The Switcher is a very, very interesting role. So upon killing a player, the Switcher will obtain their role, converting the dead player into a vanilla crewmate, vanilla imposter, or amnesiac. So, you literally take their role as soon as you kill them. Basically, it's like the combination. It's basically the combination of an imposter plus amnesiac. So yeah, whenever you kill a player, you immediately take their role, converting the dead player into a vanilla crewmate, vanilla imposter, or amnesiac, depending on their alliance. If the player that was killed is an imposter or neutral that has teammates, this is a very important part. If the person that you killed is an imposter or neutral with teammates, then the switcher and the killed player's teammates will be able to kill and use all abilities on each other. So even though you're on the same team as an imposter, you can still kill the imposter and the imposter can still kill you. So yeah, the switcher and the killed player's teammates will be able to kill and use all abilities on each other. And the switcher will not know who their teammates are until they What? The switcher will not know who their teammates are until they or their teammates die. Okay, no, that's correct. Until they die or their teammates die. I just missed out on the first die. Um, but they are on the same team and have the same win condition. If the switcher kills the deceiver after they have used their ability, they will continue to masquerade as the role the deceiver was. So again, even though you can, like, for example, with vampire, right? If you are the switcher and you kill the vampire, you become the vampire. To the other vampire or vampires, you look like a regular old vampire. However, they can still kill you, and you can still kill them. And the reason why I made it, and again, even though you're on the team of the vampires, you don't know who the other vampires are. Same with imposters. Even though you're on the team with the imposters, you don't know who the other imposters are. You might be wondering why I made it that way. And the reason why is because the role that I've mentioned a handful of times now, the Deceiver. So this is a new crewmate killing role, very similar in a style to the Switcher, but this is the Deceiver. Similar to the Sheriff, the Deceiver can kill a non-crew or imposter role depending on the settings, but will result in the Deceiver dying if they attempt to kill a crew role. Again, just like the sheriff. However, unlike the sheriff, the deceiver will gain the abilities, including vision, of the role that they just killed and will look like that role to all players, including dead players, but will not get to know who their potential teammates are. Teammates in quotes, because you're not actually a teammate. You just look like a teammate to that person and you have their abilities. Now, despite these extra abilities and visually looking like a different role, the Deceiver is still a crewmate role with the crewmate win conditions. Similar to the Glitch and Juggernaut, there is simply a percentage chance that the Sheriff will become the Deceiver. So, you know how I mentioned with the Juggernaut how you can't have both the Juggernaut and the Glitch in the same time because the Juggernaut is basically just a percentage chance of a glitch. The same as with the Deceiver and the Sheriff. So you can't have both a Sheriff and a Deceiver in the same game. It's just simply that the Deceiver is a potential chance that you are the Deceiver as opposed to being the Sheriff. So if the Deceiver kills the Switcher after they have used their ability, they will continue to masquerade as the role the Switcher was. So this is where this interesting dynamic comes in. Let's say you're an imposter. Let's say that your imposter buddy is now dead. However, you have a new teammate. You don't know whether or not that teammate is the Switcher or the Deceiver. There's no way that you can know. Unless if they tell you, right? But there's no instinct, there's no like easy, immediately obvious way that you can know whether or not that person's actually on your team or if they're just deceiving you into thinking that they're on your team. So you can take the gamble of killing them, but you might be taking a potential chance of killing your own teammate. So this is where the heavy risk comes in. However, as if you were the deceiver and it's pretty obvious that somebody else is the switcher, you're going to be in a pretty rough situation because you're going to have a target on your back from the other imposter or neutral killing that is on your team. So this is where the interesting dynamic comes in, right? You basically get to trick the other imposters into thinking that you are their teammate when you actually are not. And as I mentioned, alluded to at the very last sentence of both the switcher and the deceiver's description, if the deceiver kills the switcher after they have used their ability, they will continue to masquerade as the role the switcher was. So for example, if the switcher kills an imposter and becomes a new imposter, then if the deceiver kills the deceiver doesn't become the switcher, they become the imposter that the switcher killed. And vice versa. If the deceiver kills the imposter, then if the switcher kills the switcher will become whatever role that the deceiver killed, and they will masquerade as the same role that the deceiver killed as well. This is made to make it. I made this change for two reasons: A, because it's interesting, and B, otherwise it would be pretty obvious if somebody switched roles that, like, hey, all of a sudden this person isn't on my team. It's pretty clear that there was some deceiving going on, right? So yeah, very interesting and exciting rules. And now the last two changes, which are probably the most important, but I saved the best for last. For dead players, all assassinations will show the person who assassinated them killing that player rather than the assassinated player killing themselves. So I mentioned this while I was playing Town of Us. I'm like, man, it would be really nice. It would be super duper convenient if you would see the person, if you would know who is assassinating who when there's an assassination during meetings. And this is where that change comes in. If you're dead or if you just got killed by an assassination, rather than just seeing the person who died killing themselves, you instead see the assassin killing themselves. However, if you are alive, you don't know who assassinated, obviously, because that would be kind of broken if you did. So that is the logic there. Because if you're dead, there's no way you can influence the round, so it's just nice to know who killed who. So, new setting, task requirements for abilities. So, this is probably the most important change, and that's why I mentioned it at the very top of the video. Task requirements for abilities. So, and the options are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all. So, crewmates will not be able to use their role abilities. Modifiers can still be used no matter what. There's no restrictions on modifiers, but role abilities cannot be used until they have completed at least X tasks. So, for example, if you're the sheriff and the host makes it so that you need to complete 2 tasks before you can use your ability, that means that you cannot kill anybody. You cannot fake or you cannot a sheriff shoot whatsoever until you have completed at least 2 of your tasks. Same applies to the Oracle, same applies to the Mystic, same applies to the Medium, same applies to the Veteran. You cannot use your abilities whatsoever as if you are a crewmate role, that is, until you have completed how many ever tasks the host sets. So again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all are your options. So there we have it for all of the canon ideas. Now we're going to switch into a different realm. We're going to talk about some of the alternate ideas that they obviously conflict with each other. So like you can't have both my original ideas and my alternate ideas, but Ton of Us devs, whoever's working on Ton of Us, you can maybe try these ideas out, see if you like them. So, this is an interesting one where we removed spy as crewmate role. Wait, is that what I did? Oh. Okay, so never mind, ignore that then, because that's not an alternate idea, that's the same idea I already had. This is the new one, though. Removed Seer as crewmate role. So Seer, completely eliminated from the game. However, we changed Snitch a whole lot. So the Snitch basically becomes a kind of middle ground between the Snitch and the Seer. So that's why we removed the Seer. So the Snitch has a new Witness ability. So regardless of the settings, the snitch will be able to witness immediately at the start of the match. So remember how I said that crewmate abilities, there's the option such that crewmate abilities um, can't be used until you've completed X amount of tasks. That will not apply to the snitch. So the snitch will be able to witness at the beginning of the match no matter what. So the snitch throughout the match, throughout the rounds, can mark as many players as they wish with the witness ability. For the time being, the witness ability is just a mark. All you're doing is just marking people, just like you would do with the Plague Bear, just like you would do with the Arsonist. You just mark them. So instead of the snitch being marked with an arrow by all imposters and neutral killing rolls when they are on their last tasks, they instead are marked by all the players that they witness throughout the rounds. So if you only witness 2 people, then you will see the little arrow. The little arrow will show to the 2 people that you witness. And those 2 people could just be crewmates. So obviously those crewmates would know, hey, the snitch is just about to finish their tasks, or maybe they have finished their tasks. We should hit the button for them. Um, Once in a meeting, the snitch, just like previously, will be revealed to everybody, depending on the settings, and can no longer be assassinated. What information the snitch sees depends on the settings. Even so, they could see the roles, or they could just see their alliance, right? Even after the snitch has been revealed, they can continue to witness more players. So you see what I meant about how the new snitch is kind of like a middle ground between the seer and the snitch? So it's like, yeah, you need to complete tasks in order to reveal people, but just like the seer, you have to actually actively manually go up to people to reveal them or to witness them, quote unquote. And then if all of your tasks are done, or when all of your tasks are done, then those roles will be revealed to you, or the alliance will be revealed to you. Make sense? Yeah. So this is an alternate idea. I don't want this in the same line as like my original idea, but we're spilling out ideas. And last but not least, we have a change to the survivor. The survivor is, the one they can survive, right? So the player can choose to, at any point, reveal themselves as the survivor, preventing them from being able to be assassinated. So just like the mayor, just like this version of the snitch right here, they are unable to be assassinated. However, this will prevent them from using their safeguard ability, and similar to the mayor, will give them reduced vision. So obviously this is quite a bit different from the survivor I suggested previously, but basically you can just go into a meeting and say, hey, I'm the survivor, doomsayer, you can't guess me, imposters, maybe don't kill me, maybe I can work with you, but also I might not work with you depending on how many people are alive, because, my goal is to survive. My goal isn't to have one team win or the other. I just need to survive. So I basically win with whoever's alive. And that's basically the idea of the survivor. This version of the survivor. Once you use your reveal. Obviously, prior to you using your reveal, it works just as the same as it does right now. So, I need to drink some water because my throat is dry, but that was my video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that if the Town of Us devs are listening, you consider some of these ideas. In fact, I'm not lazy. Well, I'm partially lazy, but I'm not fully lazy. If somebody wants to teach me how to put this in the game, I will make it myself. I'm like straight up. Like if you teach me how to use Unity or how to code and all that stuff, I will happily put the work and effort into putting this in the game because I really like these ideas. I don't know how I would do it, but I would try and figure it out. But otherwise, um, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if you have any other interesting suggestions. Have a good one, take care, peace, and bye-bye.